I think the time has come when we should change the conversation to end this system that does not work for all of us. I think the time has come to start talking about what should come after this system.
Hello, my great and wonderful people. We welcome you once again to our today's episode of this program. And today we get this video for our team. We're going to be one quickly the review to you concerning the things going to be say they happen right now for inside this country, Nigeria. This one is the recent video we will receive from Barrister Dele Farotimi. Just as you see small from the introduction of this broadcast, how it be say this man take comments for this recent video to explain to Nigerian the thing or the dimension when it be say we supposed to think towards even for all the things when it be say if they happen to us now. Although this man, it take his own time to break everything down one after the other. As we do see, anytime when we say it is see Barrister Dele Farotimi for scream, pay attention to the details of his word, because honestly, this man, they prepare come answer to enlighten us about the things when they say yes. A lot of us we pretend say we know, whereas we don't know any one of them. All right, although this message, it take a little time, I think about 20 minutes, I bet pay attention. I believe say it was time. I'll come back for more.
I'll come by this morning to talk to you about a subject I have titled The Critical Mass. Perhaps I should have tweaked that title a wee bit and probably title it The Required Critical Mass. This has crossed my mind, but I think it's best we left it as it is and just call it the critical mass. But what do I mean by the critical mass? Exactly what is the critical mass? Physics will tell you that the critical mass is the minimum amount of fissile material that is required to maintain a nuclear chain reaction. See, one of the wonderment of this world is that whilst I could never pass mathematics until I became ingenious, I have always managed to pass physics. Very funny, but that's what he says. He says it's the minimum amount of fissile material. You know all those things that they were saying that Iran was doing, all those what was it again? Enriching uranium. Those are the fissile material. So when you have enough of it, that is the critical mass. That is the physics definition of the critical mass. But sociology would define it as the minimum size or amount of resources required to start or to maintain a venture. The minimum size or amount of resources, whether that is manpower, whatever is required to get it going. That is what social sciences generally would define the critical mass to be. But I found a definition online, one that is more attuned to society and sociology. And it says a critical mass is a group of people who make a drastic change altering their behaviors, opinions, and actions. A group of people who make a drastic change, altering their behavior, opinions, and actions. So, what is your business with a critical mass? You should ask. So let me see if we can tie all these up somewhat. So we live in a country that is essentially dysfunctional. Nothing is working as it should work. The judiciary is anything but the last hope of the common man. It is as debauched as the police station. Those we claim to have elected, we certainly did not elect. They selected themselves. The Nigerian is anything but a citizen, and Nigeria is anything but a state. It is gangster's paradise the way it is right now. So, what does that critical mass have to do with the despoilation of our country and the normalization of evil? It is that without a critical mass of us as a collective desiring a better Nigeria to the point where we demand that the right things be done and that Nigeria be subjected to the rule of law in the place of the rule of men. Until we get to that point where there is a critical mass that is demanding a departure from our sickening abnormalcy that has become normalcy, until there are enough people who agree that there exists the need to make a drastic change, drastic to the point where the person's ethnicity, his religion, his beliefs or non-beliefs should not matter in your evaluation of his humanity. Drastic in the sense that you alter your behavior. You agree there is a critical mass. You know what it is about salt, right? So you are salting a pot of soup. You don't salt based on the amount of salt you've got. You salt based on what is appropriate. So the amount of salt you're using to alter the bland taste of the stew is dependent on your evaluation of what is required, and that is the critical mass of salt you're going to use, because that is what is enough. The critical mass in changing society is not unlike that, actually. It simply means that if we have just 1 million Nigerians, just 1 million Nigerians desirous of change, who decide that they will come out and demand the kind of change that benefits everybody across the length and breadth of the country. Okay, let me give you another case in point. EndSARS. I remember months before EndSARS, about now, about April, May, maybe June, early first, second quarter of 2020, I had occasion to speak with a few brothers. And I remember telling them at the time that we would appear to be sleeping through a revolution. And they almost universally asked why I would draw that conclusion. And I explained that I could feel that we were at an inflection point in the history of Nigeria, and that the people were desirous of change, genuine change in the direction of the country. But we were speaking over their heads. These were I just didn't feel comfortable with where we were at the time. This was in 2020. And lo and behold, the EndSARS protests started slowly. You know, some of us, I was quite skeptical about anything of substance happening, so I just maintained my distance and I was watching from afar. And when someone like Yele tried to initially get involved and he was being given the cold shoulder, it reinforced my belief that let's just leave these kids. But it grew, and a critical mass was formed. But that critical mass was not critical enough. It wasn't critical enough in the sense that matters snowballed beyond EndSARS. It soon became about end bad governance, end impunity, end this, end corruption, end that. We actually got to the inflection point that I had mentioned to comrades earlier in the year. But we got there unprepared because we were still talking EndSARS when the discussion ought to have changed and the people ought to have been prepared for an end to this evil system. So, events happened ahead of us. We slept through a revolution. But we are entering a new phase now. And that new phase is where this critical mass is required if our children and our children's children are ever going to be freed of the blight that is currently called Nigeria. And I would explain. This system has eloquently introduced itself to Nigerians. The PDP is the APC, the APC is the PDP. I'll even go as far as to say that the Labour Party is the PDP is the Labour Party is the APC. I don't really consider any of these parties to be ideological vehicles. But the key thing is this. There is a critical mass that has developed out of the EndSARS awakening. That critical mass is largely present in what is the obedient movement. That is without prejudice to the fact that there are many people who are not within the obedient movement who are equally awakened by the EndSARS or who are active part of the EndSARS movement but are in their own lane, completely different and even antagonistic to the obedient. That's the way the world is. We don't all have to sing from the same hymn sheet. But the most important thing is that there is an awakening, and that awakening is desirous of a different direction for Nigeria. That awakening, at least I can speak to that awakening within the obedient movement, with which I happily identify. And what I will say to that family, and even to those outside of that family, is this. Unlike 2020, when we were completely unprepared and we were just single issue about our demand, was about EndSARS. I think the time has come when we should change the conversation to end this system that does not work for all of us. I think the time has come to start talking about what should come after this system. Because the one thing that is clear, abundantly clear, is that this system is not working for me and you. And it is unlikely to work for our children or their children's children. So, this critical mass to which I speak, I'm not just speaking to the number of people they are resolved to change things. I'm talking about their readiness to be critical, as in reflect, think deeply, think introspectively about the realities that we are going to be faced with in the coming days, months, and years. Be critical about the choices you make. Don't let it be about ethnicity or about religion. Be critical. Yes, it is sufficient to talk in terms of the sociological aspect of the critical mass, but I believe that it is also as critical that the critical mass should be about ideas as much as possible. Those ideas forms the ideals that should bind people even when their ethnicity, their religion, and even their socio-political views might not necessarily be the same thing. If the strategic objectives that have been identified in your critical evaluation of your realities suggest that you have common things that you can all work with, yeah, you should work together. By all means, as long as you're not compromising principles. That is the critical mass to which I speak. But you see, there is a very important part. In fact, there are like two things that we need to understand very clearly, that before a mass can be said to be critical, it must have been bound together based on conviction, and most importantly, it's got to be based on truth, because that is the only time it can stand the test of time. If the mass is not formed on account of larceny, if it is formed based on ideas and ideals, it will stand the test of time. It will endure crises. It will survive adversity if it is found on truthful conviction. The critical mass required to effect these changes cannot be fixed on living. It cannot. It must live with the reality of its mortality, but it must not be afraid of death. That critical mass must understand that there will be times when they would have to plant trees and they will not be around to eat the fruit. Their children and their children's children would have to eat of those fruits. If we are ever going to birth a Nigeria that works for all, even if you broke Nigeria up into all of your desired homelands, even to make those work, you're going to have to think beyond your existential considerations. You need to think, look into the future, projecting into the future, and on the basis of what you see in the future, you plan from the present. This is the only way that a critical mass can be effective in changing the situation in which we have found ourselves. There must be vision clarity. You know my favorite Bible verse, Habakkuk chapter 2. The vision is for an appointed time. Though it tarries, wait for it. Wait. We can talk about waiting from now to kingdom come, but understand that he's not saying sleep and be waiting, set out. Wait is an active thing. Wait for it. Write it down. Make it plain, that those who read it may run with it. Your vision must be clear as a critical mass. That vision that you all share has to be clear. It has to be precise. It is required that that vision is understandable by the next person who is reading it. That's the only time they can possibly run with it. So if you have a critical mass united by a vision of a better future, that critical mass then finds it that much easier to take the sociological step forward and become a group of people who make a drastic change, altering their behavior, opinions, and actions. If we're going to change Nigeria, we're going to need to take drastic actions. We're going to have to alter our behaviors. We're going to have to change our opinions. We're going to have to take actions and change our actions. There are multiple things that we are going to need to do as a collective. But that critical mass must be built consciously. So I come around this week to talk to you about that critical mass. You should be part of that mass. You're not going to live forever. You won't. None of us will. No matter how much money you amass, you can't live forever. And there is no way you can actually look to the country that we have built and believe that you are going to rest easy in your grave if there is a consciousness beyond the now. If you truly desire to rest in peace, I do. If you've got to be part of a critical mass desirous of changing this country, we should be having conversations, speaking to the bones and flesh of the kind of change that we expect to see, the kind of Nigeria that we expect to bequeath to our children. But whatever we're going to do, that critical mass must also be critical. Watch this space. We're going to build that critical mass together.
All right, my great and wonderful people, I believe you don't listen to the detail of this very video. All right, so what do you think concerning this very decision and also the direction when we see this my point out? You leave your comment for us for the comment section. I believe time don't reach when we say every Nigerian's supposed to define way out. This situation or the freedom when we say all of us they seek for, not before anybody, and it will come for any one direction. Now, collective effort, and now we all will put our hands and minds together to search out the way out. All right, I would like to draw the line of this broadcast here. And before we say final goodbye, I want quickly use this medium to appreciate you for your time when you stay with us up to this very moment. God Almighty will bless you. And equally, the way when you the help of the share this broadcast, your likes, your comments, all of them, we appreciate them. I beg not forget to help us share this very one so that we still reach our brothers and sisters all around the world, because we believe one thing, say information, now power, and also do so God Almighty will bless you. We'd like to draw the conclusion of this program here. We will see you again. We will see you. Remember, we love you all. Bye-bye.